to The Green Pretenders,
a sustainably challenged podcast.
My name is Simon.
And my name is Sian, and this episode, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. We're talking all things festive and the Xmas period. At the time of recording this, it's coming up to the end of November, December fast approaching, and December means Christmas.
Yes, the jolliest of all seasons is coming up. And quite frankly, also the most wasteful period.
Yeah, Christmas doesn't do anything by halves, does it? It's like the most extra time of year. And I mean, maybe 2020 aside, we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. And this year might look a little bit different. But in general, Christmas does not do anything by halves. It's love, it's joy to the extremes, but it's also chaos and wastefulness to the extremes.
And we want to talk about this. We want to talk about how wasteful Christmas was in the past and the status quo, and what possibly we could do better for this Christmas and many more Christmases to come. Because we do love Christmas. We love it.
Yeah, it's hard not to love it, isn't it? Even though for everyone it means something very different, I think everyone can carve their own niche of what it means to them and find reasons to love it, hopefully. I know that people's circumstances vary so hugely, but there's joy to be had.
And maybe a quick disclaimer, we know that Christmas is or stems from a religious Christian festive period. Obviously, we're more talking about the cultural phenomenon rather than the religious one.
Yeah, for sure. That's such a good point. We mean no disrespect to its origins, but obviously the commercialization of Christmas, it can't be denied. As you say. So
yes.
And we were thinking we're going to split this down into 4 topics. So we're going to talk about Christmas food, Christmas presents and gift giving, Christmas decorations, and travelling over the festive period.
And we're going to dive right into the first category, which personally is my favourite. I do love Christmas-related foods, drinks, treats. It's just a period of overindulgence, isn't it?
It so is, and I'm actually really excited to hear about what you normally eat at Christmas as a vegetarian and aspiring vegan, because I think Christmas non-meat solutions are often so delicious and really, really imaginative. But starting with the downsides, there are so many horrifying stats around food at Christmas, and I think one of the things that causes that is the fact that so much Christmas food is so categorized as Christmassy, much like pumpkins at Halloween. So we get this cut-off date where if people haven't eaten their mince pies and they haven't eaten their pigs in blankets, a lot of that's going to end up in landfill if it hasn't been bought.
Here's a stat for you. The UK consumes 80% more food over the Christmas period than at any other time of year. So, talking about overindulgence.
It would be hard for anyone to measure what's literally consumed, i.e. eaten. So I'm imagining that stat comes from consumption at the till point and the purchasing of food. Because what I was reading about is how much people overbuy at Christmas as well. So people are taking home all of that 80% more food than usual. And the chances are that it's not all even going to be eaten.
No, exactly, because there's only so much you can eat. And I think we all know this, the feeling of a Boxing Day or maybe the 27th, and you literally cannot get anything more down your throat. It's too much. And we love that. But at the same time, there are many, many things that we can do, maybe starting this year, to avoid food waste, because that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, and to put some numbers on that, I read that over 4 million Christmas dinners are thrown away every year. So that's the equivalent of 263,000 turkeys, 7.5 million mince pies, 740,000 portions of Christmas pudding, and 11.3 million roast potatoes thrown out at Christmas.
That is insane.
For me, leftovers are some of the best parts of a meal, and a Christmas meal especially. You know, my stepdad always does this amazing thing where we have bubble and squeak on Boxing Day, so literally anything that's left lying about, leeks, Brussels sprouts, potatoes, cranberry sauce, he just chucks it all in a pan, griddles it up, And like, it's just delicious.
So back in the day when I wasn't a vegetarian, so over 10 years ago, we would always have turkey. I always considered it a very traditional Austrian Christmas thing, but I think it's actually not. It was just my family that always did a turkey, and apparently my grandma did that as well. And we would always eat turkey until the turkey was gone.
Yeah.
You know, the 25th, because we celebrate on the 24th, so 25th, 26th, maybe 27th, you still get a turkey sandwich, or my mum used to make a risotto with the leftover meat. It's delicious, and quite frankly, there was no food waste unless something really goes off, and then that is a different story. But obviously you need to think ahead, and I think that's one of our starting points is to actually think ahead. How much food are you going to eat, and what are you going to do with your leftovers?
Definitely. And look up those recipes in advance for what to do with the leftovers, so that you have it almost as, not as an afterthought, but as an intention going in. So, because I know with turkey, for example, the dark meat is often left and people just think, well, we don't want that, it's no good for sandwiches maybe, but the dark meat on a turkey is great for curries or stews, and then you can use like the bones and to get a soup or a broth going. There's just so much that you can do, so have those recipes ready in advance.
And tying in with that, you know, you get in the Christmas spirit, you're at Sainsbury's or Tesco's or Morrison's or any other supermarket, and they're playing the Christmas music, and you see all those stacks of after eights or things right next to the till, and you think, well, I already have 2 desserts and my aunt is bringing a 3rd one, but go on, you know, it's Christmas, I'm just gonna buy more chocolates for the kids. That's what you want to avoid. Write a shopping list and then stick to it, and try and avoid those last minute purchases at the till.
Yeah, because the shops are trying to upsell everything they can, and I wonder how this year is going to be affected by that. Presumably less people will be shopping in person. Does shopping online mean that we're more likely to click that extra button and make those impulse additions, or less likely? I'm not really sure.
I'm not sure, but what I'm sure is that shops are gonna try extra hard to get you to buy those extra items.
Yes.
Before checking out. Like, they're gonna do all the psychological manipulation to make you purchase more.
So we need to go shopping with our list, like you said, and with like a tinfoil hat to block out all the, you know, mind waves that they're trying to manipulate with their subliminal messaging.
I've got my aluminium hat ready.
Good. Okay. This is real life advice happening on the Green Pretenders. So what about, since you stopped eating turkey, what is your main thing on your plate at Christmas?
Wow, so there are still some things that are just a Vidlak tradition, and those are croquettes. So mashed potatoes, but then breaded into small little bits, and they're then fried, or I put them in the oven, and they're just so delicious. Like, they're crunchy on the outside, soft on the inside, and yeah, those are a staple. I do love all the sides. I think going vegetarian, going vegan, it's all about the sides, isn't it? Croquettes have to be there, and then also red cabbage cooked is delicious as well. It's, you put in a bit of vinegar, maybe a bit of apple. It's sour sweet, and it's really delicious. And I've started to now make like a Wellington, basically. So I did this a couple of years back, and I think I made a lentil Wellington, but in the middle there were mushrooms, and then it's sort of baked on the outside.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, and I'm thinking maybe I'll do butternut squash, or maybe sweet potato. You know, there are many options. I'm gonna get a bit creative.
And I think we would like to challenge people to maybe relinquish the idea of tradition just a little bit, because I know often with the food at Christmas it feels like it's tied in with so much more. Like, well, if I don't have my turkey and if I don't have these things, then it just won't feel like Christmas. But if we just take a bold step and maybe switch up tradition for a year, we realise that Christmas hasn't ended and nothing bad happened, and we've just created a new tradition, and that's great. So maybe have your primary meat and then make a veggie Wellington as the secondary thing.
Have your meat for a treat, but then also supplement it with a vegan or a veggie option. And there is so much out there, and you can absolutely 100% create new traditions. And for me, for example, that Wellington now has kind of become a bit of a Christmas tradition.
The power is ours. The power is ours. So with food, we've talked about having your shopping list, being prepared with how you're going to use your leftovers, avoid overbuying and avoid the upselling, shake up your traditions. And I think another thing is acknowledge the charities and the organisations in your area that deal with redistributing food waste, because this is such a difficult time of year for them. They're especially busy. I know we talk a lot about my friends' refuse up in the northeast and their stats around the amount of Christmas food that they end up gathering and trying to redistribute. It's like tons and tons and tons of food. So, you know, getting our wallets and purses out and sending a little money their way is a good Christmas deed.
And also, if you do have leftovers, put them on Olio, share it with the community, see if there's anyone out there who maybe couldn't afford a Christmas dinner, Christmas meal, and help out.
Do you want to say anything more on food, glorious food?
I think a general thing is also try and make your own. For example, make your own mince pies. That involves less plastic, and then maybe you're also going to consume less.
There seems to be a rule that mince pies have to come individually in their aluminium case, which then sits in the little plastic bed, which then sits inside a cardboard box. And it's kind of crazy. It's like, why have we just made that rule? Why can't they just be in a paper bag?
Exactly. So yeah, make your own, create new traditions, make a shopping list and stick to it. I think are my 3 takeaways.
Gorgeous. So speaking of shopping lists, should we move on to the idea of gift giving and present buying?
Yes.
It feels like a sad topic this year, just because I feel like lots of people are very broke. And this year, obviously, everything's a bit in the balance. We don't know who we're going to be spending Christmas with across the world. So yeah, the idea of gift giving maybe feels a bit different. But again, it's perfect because this gives us an opportunity to shake up our habits and our traditions, our self-imposed traditions. You know, it's going to be different because it has to be. So let's take this opportunity to do things differently.
And I think I would start with the 3 R's. So reduce, reuse, and recycle. It sounds a bit, like dull when it comes to presents, but maybe this year is a good opportunity to reduce the amount of presents that you give, especially if it's just some, random item that is kind of disposable in a way.
Yeah, I read that 21 million people receive a gift that they didn't want each year, and 5% of those just throw them away. They don't even re-gift them or sell them and give them to charity. They just literally throw them in the bin. So, yeah, think about how much you're buying and whether it actually serves the person. And think about where you're buying from.
If you are going to go out into shops, shop local. Think of all the small shops in your area that have been struggling immensely over the pandemic and choose them maybe over huge ones like John Lewis or, other big brands.
And I think Secret Santa is really underrated as a way of cutting down on the consumption, cutting down on money spending. And this year especially, we all need to be probably tightening our purse strings.
You can also maybe gift a voucher for a meal that you're going to go out with someone, or, get creative and make your own if you can.
I don't know, if someone's wrote me a poem or sent me a video of them playing an instrument that they're good at, I would freaking love that. Give me your talents as a gift. I would be overwhelmed with joy with that.
Absolutely, yeah, so would I.
And then what goes hand in hand with gifts is wrapping.
Yes. Oh dear.
I mean, on the plus side, it does seem like a lot of supermarkets and people in general are becoming more savvy to the idea of recyclable wrapping, because I have seen a lot of people turning away from the kind of glitter foil covered crap which literally cannot be recycled and has to go in the bin. So I think recyclable Christmas wrapping is becoming more commonplace on the plus side.
I think a really big one, and you touched upon this in an earlier episode, is sellotape.
Mm-hmm. Invest in one of the recyclable tapes that we talked about in the last episode, and you can get them on all sorts of different online shops, independent shops. and it's just brown paper with the gum, but it's biodegradable and recyclable.
Yeah.
One of my favourite things to do with wrapping and cards is to take last year's batch of Christmas cards that I received, cut out shapes, and then hole punch through, get a piece of brown string, and then you've made a gift tag.
It's such a good tip. And also, I mean, what my mum used to do, she would reuse the tags over and over and over again. So we've got tags from like 20 years ago, but they're still intact because you only use them once a year.
Oh, I like that. So yeah, brown paper, recyclable tape, and upcycled tags, if possible. It's cool, it's hip, it's edgy, it's green.
It's all we want for Christmas. Right, let's move on to the next category, which is decorations.
Okay, firstly, Christmas trees. Now, everyone has a different opinion on trees and whether it's okay to get a live tree or whether it's worse to have the plastic fake trees, etc., etc. My personal opinion is, if you're buying a fake tree to keep forever, then great.
So I did a little bit of research on that, and if you're gonna keep reusing your plastic tree for more than 12 years, then absolutely it pays off. As you say, if you're going to chuck it out, then a live tree is better. Now, there's two different types, so a dead tree and an alive tree. If you're going to opt for the dead tree, then please make sure that it was sustainably grown, and also think about how you are going to recycle it. If it ends up in landfill, then it is worse than a plastic tree, because it obviously biodegrades, and that's really bad in landfill because it affects the other materials that are in landfill as well. And then there's the live tree that is alive. And with that one, I mean, obviously you need to make sure that you know in advance where you're going to plant that tree. So it comes in a little pot. If you have a garden and you think, okay, well, you know, I can have another tree in my garden, then by all means, but you can't do that every year, because otherwise you'll end up with a forest, which is also great if you are a big landowner, but I think many of us are not. I personally have a tiny tree that I absolutely adore. I think it cost £1. My mum bought it in 2014 when they came to London to visit me, my first Christmas in London, and I still use it. I bring it out every year. It's really cute. I put fairy lights around it, and it reminds me of my mum and my sister who I spent that Christmas with. And I think I'm going to keep it until it literally falls apart.
That's so lovely. What kind of size are we talking, height-wise?
11 inches or something, like really tiny.
Little mini tree. And that works perfectly for us rental generations. We move around a lot. That's a take with you tree.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the tree is one thing to consider, and it's a big factor. And then we've got all the stuff that goes on the tree and around the house. And something that I've always been really inspired by personally is my mum's approach to Christmas decorations, because she basically has just kept everything that she's ever been given Christmas themed, and at Christmas all of that stuff comes out. There's no theme to it, but everything's sentimental. Some of it's like 20 years old, 30 years old, and I really love that, because I think sometimes the styling of Christmas can get a bit much, and people will maybe throw out all their decorations one year because next year they want to go for, you know, red and gold, but last year they went for silver and white. And I think Christmas decorations should just be about getting a bazooka gun of all the Christmassy stuff you've ever had and just splattering it across the house.
Yes, absolutely, and that is my mum's approach as well, and I've always loved it.
Yes.
It's eclectic. Every single ornament has a story to tell.
Yeah, it doesn't need to match, and it doesn't need to be like a showroom. It just needs to mean Christmas.
Yeah.
And I think the more handmade you can do, the better. You can just look around you and go, okay, I happen to have these scraps of Christmas paper from years ago that are too small to wrap any gifts in. Maybe think about what you could upcycle those into, even if you just make like little cones and then hang them from a piece of string. If it's got a Christmassy pattern, that suddenly looks like a decoration. Bada bing, bada boom.
And also, you've made your own bunting. You've gone really creative with not only Christmas decorations, but obviously we're talking Christmas decorations now. But as you say, if it's a Christmassy pattern, then there you go.
Yeah.
And please also think about putting a timer on any fairy lights that you have, outdoors or indoors, really, because when you're asleep, you ain't gonna see them fairy lights, but they're still gonna eat away on the power. And I also read that it's actually really bad for animals because they get very confused when there's an artificial light source.
God, yeah, imagine being like a cat that roams around the neighbourhood. If you're in a neighbourhood where everyone kind of goes all out on the front of their houses and it's a big competition on the street, imagine being a cat. You're just wandering around. You'd be like, what the fuck did I do? Have I taken LSD or something?
Exactly, yeah. Or a bird, and you have the blinking lights and you're like, what? I'm gonna die.
Yeah. I've never thought of that. Now I'm really worried for all the animals.
Yes, so please, listeners, take one worry off Sean's shoulders and please put a timer on your Christmas lights.
So we've covered trees, we've covered decorations, we've covered lights. Oh, Christmas crackers. That's the other thing in this category.
Yes.
Who actually enjoys the really crappy cheap ones? Not many people. We love the ritual of going around the table and pulling the crackers. We love maybe getting a hat. We love telling the crappy jokes. But the little toy is definitely, I don't think, ever thought of again after that first 1 second.
No.
So not to be bar humbug about Christmas crackers, but there's a way of distilling everything we love about them and either choosing a very sustainable brand or a very sustainable set, or like making your own version that just does everything we love. We get a little hat, we get a little joke to tell, which you can just get off of the internet, and something that goes snap, crackle or pop.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it for decorations. Let's swiftly move on to travel. Now, we're not saying don't travel to see your family, but if you are going to travel, maybe choose a train. Maybe if you are going to go by car, see if you can car share, if you can pull a couple of people together, although social distancing. You know, there's a lot of things to consider. What I think we definitely advise to stay away from is traveling to crazy exotic destinations. It's just not necessary this year. I think we've accepted that, well, I've accepted that I'm going to stay in the UK, so I'm not going to see my family in Austria. And part of me is really sad about this, but another part of me is also thinking, well, it's a good thing that I'm not taking that flight, because this year is just not necessary. And hopefully in the future I will be able to go by train and avoid flying as much as I can.
This is one of those things that I feel like the infrastructure in this country puts us in a bit of a catch-22, because with the train companies being privatised, and so often at Christmas there's just not enough services laid on. You know, you go to a station like King's Cross in London a couple of days before Christmas, it is like a frickin', it's scary, man. It's like, you know, zombie apocalypse vibes.
Yes.
So I guess I really empathise with people who would rather shove a turkey carcass over their head than attempt getting on a train at peak time at Christmas. But as Simon says, there's not just two options.
Consider your options, I guess, is what we're saying, and maybe take a sacrifice this year in the hope that next year will be better and there will be more even eco-friendly options available.
I know this splits people so massively, because Christmas does mean such different things to different people, and it's easy for some people to say, oh, I don't mind staying locked down over Christmas, for example, if it means that we'll have a better January. And for others, it's like missing Christmas would be the worst thing ever. Personally, I'm excited to embrace maybe a different type of Christmas just for this year. And if that can include less travel, and if it can include less gift giving, more sustainable gift giving, then that's just a nice silver lining.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. And I think times are changing, and I, for one, am ready to embrace those changes, because we just also have to. And often it's about the attitude that we have towards things that actually just makes our lives easier.
Preach. Attitude is everything.
Right, okay, shall we wrap up? No pun intended. Okay, maybe it was a little bit intended. Ho, ho, ho. So, let's start with poops and end on a high.
Okay, my eco poop is a common theme. It's Amazon, it's Jeff Bezos. I'm frustrated with the fact that he has managed to monopolise so much of what's happened over the last year, and that will continue into Christmas. And Amazon offer these crazy cheap shipping costs. You can get everything in one place, blah, 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 blah. So Amazon and Jeff Bezos and all their money-grabbing annoyingness is my eco-poop, and
yes.
blah.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. If you can, challenge yourself. Christmas without Amazon, is it possible? Can I do it?
Tune in next season to find out.
Yeah. My eco-poop is a very sad one. Greenhouse gas emissions have gone up again, and they are actually higher than they were last year. So the trend is alarming. It has been alarming for ages, and it's a big, big poop. We're in a pandemic, we're even in lockdown, and still we're chucking out more greenhouse gases and CO2 emissions than we were ever before.
Only last episode we were talking about the different targets for carbon neutral that different countries have, and all of these really kind of aspirational goals. And it's just like, are we living in two different universes? Because how can, on the one hand, we say we're aiming for like carbon neutrality by 2050, and on the other hand, greenhouse gases are just consistently on the rise?
And I'm thinking that when are we going to start? When are we actually going to start to do something about this? And also, okay, this is going to be a tiny little rant, and I'll try and wrap it up, because the council is actually closing off roads in my area to make traffic reduced areas, and the opposition is just mental. And there's this hypocrisy of being like, oh yeah, we want like a greener area, but then at the same time, I want to drive my car down every road I can. It's just, it doesn't work. So, guys, please don't oppose these measures. They are going to help us in the long run.
Yeah.
And your children's lungs will thank you one day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Eco-whoops.
Eco-whoop. For my eco-whoop, I want to plug a website that I have found really, really good. And they have some great Christmas recipes. It's minimalistbaker.com. I've mentioned them before, but since this is a Christmas episode, I want to mention them again because they have some great vegan-friendly Christmas alternatives to traditional recipes, and I think everyone will find something that sparks their imagination and that they want to try. So, minimalistbaker.com.
And mine, also sticking to the theme, as an antidote to my Jeff Bezos ranting, I have seen lots of people, more so than ever, saying that they're only going to shop either secondhand or sustainably, and that's so cool. And then people have been piling onto these posts being like, yes, here's my friend's small business, shop here, or yeah, I'd really recommend these guys. And it's, I don't know, I find it really joyful. Like, this is becoming just mainstream, and I love it.
Yes, I love it. I'm here for it, and it puts me into a little pre-Christmas mood when I see all those posts, because I'm like, oh, people are starting to think about presents and stuff, and yeah, it's great. So keep doing it, please.
Oh, I actually do feel quite Christmassy now. I could almost, it's only 11 o'clock in the morning for context, but I could almost have a glass of mulled wine.
Oh, I could do with the mulled wine and the mince pie.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
Right, because this is a special episode, we're not going to finish with our usual theme. We are going to finish with this year's #1 Christmas album by the one and only Sean Green.
Oh God, it's very silly, but enjoy.
A 2020 Christmas featuring such classics as
I really can't stay. I told you my COVID's gone. I got to go away. Just go put this face mask on. So here it is, Merry Christmas, but nobody's having fun. Look to the future now. Please save us 2021.
all of your festive favourites in one place.
Just don't get corona. just don't get corona. Zooming home for Christmas, yeah. Grandma's mic is up too loud.
Merry Christmas, everybody!
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose. Wait, wasn't that just added to the symptom list? Yes, it was. No, I was in the recording studio with him all day yesterday and he wasn't even wearing a mask. For fuck's sake.
We even bring you some of your favourite classics.
Silent night, lonely night, fuck my life, all is shite.
And a bonus track of that one song that didn't need changing.
But I think I'll miss this one this year.